All right, welcome to an overview of the period before English colonization, when we're going to talk about really kind of the beginnings of the meeting of the Old World, defined as Europe, and the New World that will be discovered by Europe, the Western Hemisphere, North America, South America, and in between the Caribbean and Central America and Latin America. We're going to look at what's called the Columbian Exchange. This is named after Christopher Columbus, who in 1492 sailed the ocean blue from Spain and landed in the Caribbean and initiated a sort of long interest, more permanent interest in Europe and what was in the Western Hemisphere. Although Columbus himself was not quite sure where he was. He called the people that he met in the Caribbean Indians because he thought he was over here somewhere in Asia. People in 1492 had not considered that there was more land out here to the west. So as he sailed from Western Europe, trying to get to Asia, he did not consider that there would be land here. So he thought he was in East Asia. Nevertheless, it opened up a long period of contact between the Old World and the New, which helped to exchange many things, food products, animals, ideas, but the most significant as far as the negative consequences of the Columbian Exchange was the introduction of European diseases. Diseases like smallpox in particular would completely wipe out American tribes because the native peoples did not have any natural immunity to European diseases. So once Columbus and other Europeans followed and introduced these diseases, it decimated entire tribes. So there's interesting positive things like the spread of food products and a more balanced diet on a global scale and new ideas. But the diseases is one thing to keep in mind that will weaken the Native American people and make it more easy, essentially, for Europeans to come in and take over as time went on. Looking at kind of models of conquest, starting with Columbus, the painting is, or an etching, a painting that's based on Christopher Columbus's landing here in the Caribbean and in the Bahamas and into Cuba and Hispaniola and down in that area is where he first landed in 1492, was a model of conquest. You talk about the conquistadors, is the idea that they were here to claim land. You see them coming in with their armor and their weapons and their ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and planting their cross and their religious ways, and they're expecting the natives to completely give over the valuables to them, and they will take. And they even show in the background the native peoples running in fear at who these new people are, with weapons they had never seen and dogs they had never seen. And of course, when the diseases start to take hold, the question of, are these people gods? Who are these people? So as time goes on, you can see the massive conquest. This all in brown is what's controlled by Spain, including Florida. Florida is Spanish, not English. Down into Central America, of course, Mexico City, the place where the Aztec empire was located that was completely wiped out by Hernando Cortez, down into South America. The one exception to Spanish claims and New Spain that you see here in brown is over here where Brazil will be discovered. That's Portuguese. A couple of years after Columbus's landing, the Pope had negotiated a treaty line between two Catholic nations, the Portuguese and the Spanish, of course, neighbors on the Iberian Peninsula, to avoid, a war over future claims. And the line essentially designated anything to the west of the Treaty of Tordesillas line to Spain, so this was designated Spanish. Anything to the east of that line, including what would be discovered to be Brazil, would be Portuguese. So that's the one exception to Spanish claims. The Spanish did investigate up into North America, but most of their riches, their gold, their valuables that they were discovering in the New World was mainly in this area in the Caribbean and of course in Central America and down into South America. So it's violent, it's conquest, it's a very violent model of colonization. Now, in contrast, vast contrast, let's move to North America. So down here's Spanish in brown that we just looked at, and up into Canada, the St. Lawrence River Valley, the Great Lakes, the rivers, here's the Mississippi, the Ohio. This was claimed by the French. Now, the thing to keep in mind, even though this looks like a lot of territory that's claimed, is the French come in smaller numbers than the Spanish do. The French come as businessmen, essentially, as fur traders. There's a great beaver trade up in Canada, and they need to have a cooperative relationship with the native people, a more balanced, cooperative, trade-friendly based relation. So you see in this, in contrast to what I showed you before with the Spanish, the French are dressed in plain clothes. You don't see the armor necessarily that you saw in the picture of Columbus's landing. They're coming in canoes. There's a larger ship here, but they're coming in smaller numbers with trade goods. And you see the Indians, rather than depicted as savage and naked and giving them their valuables, you see a negotiation, more of an equal sort of relationship here. So the French come in smaller numbers. They're traders. They're beaver traders. They're more friendly, cooperative, balanced relationship with the native peoples. And when we get to this period that's actually on the map, 1750, 1754 is the outbreak of the French and Indian War. The French and the Indians are allies together. They're fighting against the English, which are here along the North American coast, the Atlantic coast, that are pushing into French claim lands in the Ohio River Valley is where this kind of comes to a head between England's claims and French claims. So we'll come back to this. The French have Indian alliances that are formed from this early period of cooperation in trade. So where are the English? We mentioned the English are eventually going to find themselves along the coast here. They look like they have such a small hold on North America, but the issue is over time. Are they going to be more violent? Are they going to follow a conquistador sort of takeover model, or are they going to stay small and follow a more peaceful, cooperative relationship? It's mixed. In the beginning, when Jamestown was discovered and founded by the Virginia Company as a business venture in 1607, you have a small group of these company men, soldiers, a lot of nobility, who really have to rely on the native peoples to feed them and to provide for them. And you see here, this is John Smith, a leader at Jamestown who had actually been captured by Powhatan and the Powhatan Indians in and around Jamestown. And they basically adopted him. This is his interpretation of Pocahontas saving him, but it was more of a ritual adoption. Powhatan was using this small English outpost at Jamestown to hopefully get English guns and empower himself as a powerful tribal leader. The problem is, after tobacco is discovered and more Englishmen and Europeans start to settle along the coast, they're gonna continue to claim land and to come in conflict with the native peoples, and that will be true all up and down the coast where the English will claim land. So as time goes on, because it becomes a conquest, it becomes a land claim, it starts to become more violent, much like we had seen here in the Spanish claims, where the French continued to stay small and not as threatening to the Native American population. So their relationship continued to be, in general, more peaceful than what we saw along the coast or down in the Spanish territories. So again, that's just a very brief overview of English and French and Spanish claims and this period of contact. So please review your notes and dig a little deeper into your practice questions to review this early period of contact.